Sup, YouTubers? Hope everybody's doing all right. I had a fantastic weekend. Had my son all weekend. I don't know. We just did whatever we did, right? Did a lot of yard work stuff. Hope you guys had a great time. This video is focused on you and your power to achieve. This we're living in this unified field of intelligence. I saw somebody make a post. I can't remember if I made a video about this. Somebody was talking about setting boundaries and making sure that let's say it sounded like they had an idea, or maybe the people around them weren't being supportive of what they were doing, and so they were just like, yeah, negativity. And negativity will destroy teamwork, right? I mean, if everybody around you is being negative. However, and this is important for every single one of us, including me, because if you are getting negative feedback, especially from everybody around you, take some time to reflect and say, is the path that I'm making forward the right choice? Right? Because a lot of times you'll get negative feedback from everybody, but sometimes you might have insight that they don't, and you have to take the time to teach and help them understand, right? And this is something that I have struggled with because I've been trying to find the middle ground between ascension and still working together to make a living until we get there. Because, you ascend by putting yourself in service to one another and understanding that interplay of energy between people where you're providing and receiving. And you'll trigger people depending on their state of understanding, and, if they're feeling too much like a victim, or, you'll get negative projections all over the place from all different kinds of people for different reasons, right? And sometimes that maybe you'll make a comment on somebody's post, or maybe something is providing, and they'll misinterpret it as a negative feedback instead of constructive criticism. That's one of the biggest problems, right? When you're dealing with anybody, where you're saying, okay, I have some constructive criticism. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you've ever heard that term, right? You don't throw out, just because the bathwater is a little dirty, you don't throw the baby out with it. You replace the bathwater with something clean, right? The baby's fine. You just need to clean the water a little bit, right? Because people have really good intentions, but a lot of times we start going down paths that they're self-destructive. And toxic positivity, because, and this is something that I really wanted to talk about, because if you post something and you don't recognize the fact that there's toxic positivity out there, where if you're looking for just support, just blanket support, you're not in a really good self-aware position. You need to be able to reflect and say, okay, why am I not getting just blanket support? And if you are getting blanket support, you need to question why you're getting blanket support. There needs to be people in your environment that question everything all the time. And if you don't, especially if you're running a YouTube channel, if everybody in your comments is just like, oh, you're the best ever, I'd be like, you guys, need a little time to yourself. Question your motives, question everything, right? Make sure, and then you'll get, on the flip side, you'll get YouTubers out there that'll get after people in their comments for fighting. Why? Fighting's part of the business. You're never going to have, you can, and I can explain it, but you will always have conflicting ideas, right, of the best direction to go. And if you try to suppress people and the way they interact, and try to recognize the positive is the only thing that's valid, and the negative can't be, you're destroying who you are. Half of you is in the dark, half of you is positive. So you have to recognize that maybe somebody could have an enlightened position that I'm in the dark of, and vice versa. And if you don't, you're ignoring yourself. You will always be the center of everything around you, and will always have two polarities. Always. You gotta love them both. And if you can't, then you're not loving a part of yourself. That's the secret, right? That's how you that's how you get into a state of non-judgment and a state of peace. if you feel like a ping pong ball and you're bouncing off of positive, negative energies all day long, then you're just going to be like, you want to stay in the heart space, which is where all the positive and negative collide, and it's the only place where the light and the dark intersect, is at the heart. That's why you're always following your heart, right? What does your heart want? And my heart wants the same thing that your heart wants, to surrender to the dream. And the dream isn't one you're making here, it's coming from here. That's why you surrender the heart space, because your heart carries everything. And the dream and the heart knows where you're going. The heart is where the dream's at. Only way to surrender to the dream is to surrender to the heart, to make your dreams come true. If you have some preconceived idea of what you think you want and create an image and then try to create that, you can. You can use your third eye chakra to do that. But you're not following your heart, and it will only be temporary. The only way that you will ever have permanent, lasting peace, joy, faith is by following your heart. And your heart seeks to provide for its whole environment and bring peace in the heart space for everybody, to provide. And there'll always be something to provide for, because you're always going to be collapsing towards the center of your heart. You do that forever, right? Because that's where everything is. I hope this makes sense for you guys. You know, maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I'm not aware of something. Maybe you guys should tell me, right? So, I mean, there's toxic negativity and there's toxic positivity, and there's healthy of both. The healthy, right, in my way of thinking, since we're all made exactly the same, we're all the center point of a three-part being. We're the source, and we're the masculine and feminine aspects. The feminine being the field of infinite possibility, the masculine being the temporary created form. And so you're always creating something temporary from this field of possibility. The seed coming into the egg over and over and over and over. Me speaking right now is the seed falling into the egg over and over and over, and seeing how, if the egg is recepting what the seed has to bring forward. So the act of creation is happening trillions and trillions of times per second. It's not even measurable, because the closer you look, and the smaller. Anyway, you guys know all this stuff. We could flop around outside of reality all day long. But everything is this three-part being. You are all masculine, feminine, and source. Well, you are source, because something you are that isn't changing, if you want to define it that way. You're creating a field of potential and something created. You could argue that source is neither masculine nor feminine, because it's just a void. It's just the place where there's nothing happening. It's the only place where zero exists, and it's always zero and complete at the same time, right? Full circle. Your path will always lead full circle back to the heart, back to the place of pure peace, right? The state of just being. And then create from there. Create out of infinite possibilities. And so you have to keep planting that seed if you want to, whatever it is, the dream that the heart wants to make. So where does the heart want to go? This is something that I was thinking about yesterday. And every single one of you, if you got in your heart space, you know exactly where your heart wants to go eventually, if not now. And it's always to surrender to, and this is how everything works, right? If you are the center of everything around you, you are the heart of everything around you. Everything you look around you, you are the heart of it. Everybody is. Every single one of you that's watching this video, you are the heart of your entire experience. So you're providing to that and then receiving. Now, the only way for you to balance the energy between you and the other people is to provide and be open to receive. If you try to have an attachment of some material thing, and you're trying to get out of the people around you, you're creating imbalance, right? You're unequally pulling more, especially if you're charging a lot of money for something, right? If you can be open to receive and just be okay with that, you'll get to a state of self-mastery that nobody talks about much. And you'll end up mastering yourself energetically in a lot of different ways. There are very few people on YouTube that are actually doing that. They're out there. But usually kind of fall out of balance eventually in some way, especially if you're working with other people and not treating them the same way you're treating yourself, right? If you're using their energy to put more in your own materially in your pocket, you're creating imbalance. So those people have to energetically feel less than you because you are energetically saying that I am worth more than you, right? Very dangerous to do that. You lose your soul doing that because, and that's what's the dangers of being part of business or being part of management structures. When you're part of a system that's valuing its time greater than somebody else's time, you're limiting your own limited self-awareness is destroying the self-awareness of other people, feeding off of them energetically. So how do you do it, right? You create systems, and so here's the halfway point. This is where you really have to create something that is a step in the right direction, right? Why not create a group of people where we're all equally receiving from the fruits of our labors and creating together, not valuing each one of their time differently, never putting somebody in a power position unless you get elected into a position where okay, this person is, we can serve the people around them better than the other people. We want you to be in charge of this group, right? But then also create a system to make sure that they can get pulled out of that position at any time. Because the last thing you want is somebody to get put in a position where you can't get them out of it. You got to be able to move people around organically. You treat it like a real organism, right? And that's what all of us want, right? We want heaven on earth. And the only way that we would ever create that is if the bell sounds, right? Because you're always going to be providing and receiving from the people around you energetically. And you could create a balanced society. The only way we're ever going to get that is if we ring the bell. Okay, and there's enough people who understand this and are talking together simultaneously and say, okay, we're going to go here and we're going to build this. And then we're going to emulate that for the rest of the world. We're going to create heaven on earth. It's not a religious system. It's the fact that we are all God's children. And by being God's children, you don't know what's next. All you can do is love one another and provide for one another and receive from one another in equal proportion. Because if everybody is God's children, then there isn't any one of us that is more or less deserving than the other. And so the only thing that you will ever have to do is either heal the weeds or pull the weeds out. Right? That's why money exists. Because the weeds wanted to make sure they were taken care of. That's why. It's the only reason. Because they wanted more. Somebody wanted more than somebody else. And so that's why money was created. Why else would it be, right? Because I want more than you. The reality is all of us could have everything. I mean, can you imagine what it would be like? I mean, just think about it. If you had, let's say, 144,000 people that all started working together and surrendering to one another in their heart space, because every single one of them understands that they're the center of everything around them, and you naturally provide and receive. And then it'd be up to you what you want to provide, right? In a lot of ways, it feels like my life path is to provide structure for that system, because it has to be structured in a way that is a higher state of consciousness, right? Crystallized, a crystalline structure, something that's not hierarchical in type and order, because the hierarchy is internal. And if you connect all those hierarchies in a crystalline structure, now you're creating something that we see in nature, right? A crystal is exactly the same way. You're looking at individual atoms that have a high insulation factor, but they're connected in a way that is it's highly conductive, that creates a crystalline structure that you can both store and move a lot of energy at the same time. Why wouldn't we want to create that for us here, right? As people. You'd unlock all the mysteries and we'd be in the stars within a couple of years. And everybody else would be freaking out, trying to buy and sell stuff, worshiping their thing. I believe this is coming, and I believe this is coming very fast, because you've got a breakdown, and it'll come to a critical point. You'll have no choice but a group of people have to move together quickly. You cannot sell people freedom and say you can be free just by selling people freedom. That just intellectually is totally disgusting, right? I mean, you don't become free by selling people freedom, right? That's what we see in society. Almost every single Facebook ad you'll see out there are people who have freed themselves by selling people freedom. And then, you've got everybody else. So what happens if everybody just, okay, and it just says, we'll be free. All I got to do is sell other people freedom. And then you have everybody on the planet selling each other freedom. We're not making clothes. We're not growing food. We're not building houses. We're not, you have to create balance. Unless you create a balanced society, you'll never get it. We'll always be out of balance. And so the only way this is ever going to happen is if we ring the bell and say, okay, I am willing to leave wherever I'm at now, which I would be 100% happy moving to a place where this was mutually understood. And then teaching people how to do this, right, in their own communities. Because you could teach people how to come together within a community, they wouldn't even have to move, and just build it from the inside out, right? I mean, why would you want to work for somebody else? Work for yourself with other people that want to work for themselves. You are working for yourself if you're co-ownership and you're all equally paid from the fruits of your labor. That is co-ownership. The reality is we all own this place anyway. No, not one person owns more or less than their own share, but we don't treat it like that, right? I mean, that's the only way we're ever going to have any kind of extraterrestrials show up, right, and actually start communicating with us, because they're not going to in any other way. They've already mastered themselves energetically where they can pop in and out of three-dimensional space. They're not going to, start supporting people unless they've figured this out, how to structure themselves in a balanced energetic state. That's all you're doing, right? Structure it like a natural organism. Let us pull an oracle card. What was this last one? Still. Hope you guys enjoyed my message for the day. That's all I got for you. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a like and a comment. Surrender. That's the secret. Is to surrender to the process. There is no way you can make it happen before it will. All you can do is teach and surrender to what you're teaching and help people understand. There is no other. That is the dream, right? That is the dream of the heart space, to become balanced with each other energetically, to where where the ego finally just melts away. The cells in your body don't think that they're better than the other cells, or less than or greater than. They just move energy for the cells around them. They surrender to the cells around them. Every single cell in your body is surrendering to the cells around it, or your body would self-destruct. You die. Listen to your body. Listen to what your heart is telling you. Love you guys. Have a beautiful day, and we'll catch you on the next one.